Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Bhagavad-gītā. And in today's episode, we will be studying 8th chapter, verse number 8. And the topic is the art of constant practice of Krishna consciousness. So we'll say our Mangalacharan prayers and then we will proceed on with the topic. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादां सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So today we are studying Bhagavad-gītā 8.8, chapter 8, verse 8. And the topic is the constant practice, the art of constant practice of Krishna consciousness. So I request the devotees to kindly share it in the groups and remind everyone that the session has started. And one other thing is that since I've mentioned this, I think, a couple of sessions back, that I'm unable to share my this iPad screen anymore here, and therefore it is my computer screen, which means that I do not have two screens here. Usually, when I have the iPad on, I am able to take the verses out on the iPad, and then I can see the comments on the screen here. But now I'm using the screen for showing you the verses, and so I cannot really show I cannot really see the comments. So I may not respond to the comments live, but please leave the comments. I will, time and again, I will look at the comments and see if anything is off about the video or audio, or if there are actually questions or something, then we will follow up at the end of the session, or even in the middle of the session if it is in the flow. All right, so with that out of the way, we will try to study this verse now. abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena cetasā nānya-gāminā paramaṁ puruṣaṁ divyaṁ yāti pārthānucintayan. Abhyāsa-yoga, in the practice of meditation, yuktena, being engaged, cetasā, by the mind and intelligence, nānya-gāminā, without their being deviated, paramaṁ, the Supreme Puruṣaṁ, Personality of Godhead, divyaṁ, transcendental, yāti, one achieves, Pārtha, O son of Pritha, Anucintayan, constantly thinking of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Purport. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Puruṣaṁ means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of, of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayana, Vasudeva, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayan, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the supersoul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives, we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. So, abhyāsa-yoga, practice. Now, we have understood, in the previous verses, like 8.5 and 8.6, that our thought at the last point in our life, right at the moment of death, um, is very crucial. That is a test, and it's the hardest test. Um, and if the pass and fail is, if we remember Krishna, we will go back to him, and if we remember anything else, we will become that. So everything is tested at that time. Murte janle hoy, bhajan karo, sadhan karo, murte janle hoy. Whatever we do, whatever bhajan, sadhan, everything we do, everything will be tested at the time of death. So just like when we were studying in schools, and maybe some of you still are, if you are a student, we study for the exams, and we, of course, the idea is to study to understand the matter as a whole, but also we have to pass the exam. And if we study things which are not going to be tested in the exam, that's not very fruitful for us passing the test. We have to know what will be tested and focus on that, improving that, rather than other things which may be superfluous, which may not be related, which are distractions. So that's why today in this verse, cetasā na nānya-gāminā. Nānya-gāminā. Gāminā means to go. Anya means other than Krishna. Cetasā na nānya-gāminā means without deviation, without going anywhere, without our mind, you know, wandering about. We have to practice remembering Krishna. Because, I mean, many times we have said, if in our stable condition right now, where everything is quite orderly, relatively, if we are distracted, then if there is more agitation introduced into our situation, how can we not be distracted? Well, in one way, um, when there are troubled times, we can think of Krishna more fervently, more focused, in a more focused manner. So that's why Kunti Devi even says, Vipadah santutah shashvat tatra tatra jagat guru. She says, please give me more and more calamities again and again. Bhavato darshanam yat syat apunar bhava darshanam. So, if I am in relative peace, I am in relative peaceful condition, then I may become distracted. The thoughts of material sense gratification enter into the mind and cause distractions. And when there is actual danger, visible danger, danger is always there. It's just that we don't realize. But when there is visible danger, when there is a warning, when there is imminent danger, which we can visibly see or perceive with our senses, then our prayer becomes more intense. But if we observe, that intensity of prayer can be because of uh, attachment to our body, you know, not because of love for Krishna. So it is only a preliminary impetus. Our inconvenience is a preliminary impetus for us to reconsider and reevaluate our options that we have at our disposal. Because when things go bad, then we are not left with much option. We are just in survival mode. We just forget about everything else. I need to get out of this situation. So we become like single. No, there is a single focus. So that is a advantage of dangerous situations. But again, the motive with which we may approach the Lord may not be the most um, desired. It's not the most noteworthy. It is because of our own sense gratification that our sense gratification is being disturbed, so therefore we go to the Lord to save us from that. But as we know from the 7th chapter, 16th verse, Arto Artharthi Jignasur Jnani. So Artha means one who is distressed. So somewhere or other, if we approach the Lord, we're at least pious. If we don't approach the Lord, we're impious. So the Lord sometimes, in order to make us pious, introduces some difficulty so that at least we approach the Lord. And even though it may not be with the right attitude, one second, even though it may not be with the right attitude, at least it's a beginning in the matter of remembrance of the Lord. So that remembrance of the Lord will purify us. Om apavitrah pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va yah smaret pundarikaksham sabāhyabhyantara suchihim. Om Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu. So, apavitraha pavitrova, whether we are in a purified state or impurified state. Sarvavasthan, sarvavasthan means all kinds of situation in any circumstance. Gatopi va, all the so-called material auspiciousness, inauspiciousness, everything is driven away. We will become purified. Yasmaret pundarikaksham sa bahya abhyantara shuchiha. Our internal and external existence will get purified just by remembering Krishna. So even though we may come with a sense gratificatory attitude, um, the remembrance of Krishna will eventually purify us, and step by step, we are surely progressing towards complete purified state of Krishna consciousness. So, therefore, troubles may be a good impetus. Um, but we have to rise above that platform of not only remembering the Lord during troubled times, but also during relatively not so troublesome times. So, therefore, as I mentioned once in another session, the not so troublesome times are the more dangerous times because we forget the Lord more easily. In fact, um, the demigods even say that, right? Where is it? 5:19. 5. Three maybe. 4:22 maybe. See, this is the point. किं दुष्करैर्नः क्रतुभिस्तपो व्रतैर् दानाभिर्वा दानादिभिर्वा द्युजयेन फल्गुना न यत्र नारायणपादपङ्कज स्मृतिः प्रमुष्टातिशयेन्द्रियोत्सवात्. The demigods continue. After performing the very difficult tasks of executing Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, undergoing austerities, observing vows, and giving charity, we have achieved this position as inhabitants of the heavenly planets. But what is the value of this achievement? Here we are, certainly very engaged in material sense gratification, and therefore we can hardly remember the lotus feet of Lord Narayana. Indeed, because of our excessive sense gratification, we have almost forgotten his lotus feet. नयत्र नारायण पादपंकज स्मृति प्रमुष्ट अतिशयेन्द्रिय उत्सवात. Indriya utsavat means utsava means festival. Indriya utsava means the senses are having a huge festival. That means there is so much opportunity for sense gratification. Atishaya, excessive. Pramushta, lost. And of course, too much pain also, too much pain in the sense just like in hellish planets, it is also so disturbing. A pure devotee can remain in any condition like Prahlad Maharaj and he can always remember Krishna. But for the average, I mean for the beginner, neophyte, um, he needs to have just the right balance of comfort and discomfort. Because there's too much discomfort in the beginning, it's impossible to remember Krishna like that. And too much happiness is also impossible to remember Krishna. So the earthly planet, the earthly human life, especially so in Bharatvarsha, provides the right amount, right regulation of the knobs of happiness and distress. So just the right amount. In the cooking fire, if you want to cook some pakoda, something like that, the oil should not be too hot and it should not be too cold. It should be just in the right heat. Then it will get nicely cooked. Otherwise, it's burnt or it's uncooked. So similarly, our that heat that the troublesome nature should be just controlled. And in the earth, especially in Bharatvarsh, if you see other countries even on this planet, um, like America or the so-called developed countries, it's too much opportunity for sense gratification, and people are just they go away. They try to go away from, they get too distracted from spiritual life. And then there are countries where yes, there is troublesome nature, but there is no knowledge. So they commit sinful activities, even though they don't have too much happiness. They are just lost. Um, but at least they're a little more grounded, a little more humble, a little more grounded in reality. There is a chance of you know some there's some work for the brain is still working in the sense that they still contemplate about life and all. Whereas if you have too much sense gratification, and thanks to so-called now internet and everything, people are just blind to this kind of thing. They're just scrolling their phone screens and then just forgetting about everything else. There's no contemplation at all about life. So all this is excessive. Um, what is that? Stimulation for the senses. That is indriya utsavat, stimulation of the senses. In fact, now there are some people, even materialistically, they are talking about the value of being bored. You know, to be bored. People don't want to be bored. They just want to be having some stimulation, the senses to be stimulated. So they just one in this TikToks and all this work very well because they're always scrolling and scrolling, and then every time they in senses are being stimulated. So they're saying this is actually causing a huge degradation of the mental cognitive power of the human being. And to be bored, if you're bored, then you will actually sit down and even settle your thoughts and think about bigger things, more valuable things, or more impactful things, or something more contemplative, more deeply you will consider life, whatever it is. So even materialists are saying that. In our case, we want to be engaged. Yes, we also don't want to be driven away by material sense gratification, but not just being bored, but to constantly think about a very valuable subject, not just blankly thinking or something, speculating. On the material platform, manorathena asati, we are just speculating. But if we have a substantial subject to think about deeply, and if we can actually spend time doing that, then that is the most fruitful use of our time, rather than just being materially bored and pick up some hobby and then waste time like that. That's another whole distraction. Bored or not bored, bored or stimulated, it is always a distraction. We are in a distracted state always. So we have to focus it on the most worthwhile subject, that is Krishna consciousness. And it is the thing, Krishna consciousness is the thing that will give us the most satisfaction and happiness anyway. So why we should give that up and go for something which is not so meaningful? But we are not convinced. The problem is we are not convinced. The reason why we are not convinced about the seriousness or importance of spiritual life is because essentially we believe in this saying that seeing is believing, or what is more visible or perceivable to our senses, we tend to believe that more than that which is beyond the field of the senses. If we actually analyze what we really believe in, what we vaguely believe in, what we have serious doubts about, um, if we analyze that, if we contemplate and see ourselves, we will notice a peculiar thing, that we have so much surety. We are so sure about everything pertaining to this body. These are my parents, this is my wife, this is my house, this is my position, this is my bank balance, this is my job, this is my day-to-day life, and this is the most tangible form of my existence. Now, yeah, you can talk about mind. People think like this. You can talk about the mind, and you can talk about the soul. Yeah, these are all like vague, something up there. Like, yeah, maybe something inside or whatever. But now I need food, I need survival, so this is the most important thing I need to be concerned about right now. And if I have the luxury of time, if I have the luxury of mental space, then I can, probably explore psychology and spirituality and religion, all these things. But right now, the most important thing is the body. So this is the thought that we are driven by. So we always have in our priority the most visible thing, the most perceivable thing with our senses. But actually, if you look at it, if you look at it from the Shastric perspective, from the philosophical, from the scriptural point of view, from which is the reality, if you see the eternity of our existence, the soul is eternal, the body is temporary, and even within the body, there are two kinds of bodies. One is Jada Sharira, one is Sukshma Sharira. Sukshma Sharira is the um, subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and ego, false ego. Man, buddhi, ahankar. Whereas Bhumi, Apa, Anala, Vayu, Kham, these five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, these are the gross elements. And our gross body, our subtle body, and we ourselves, the soul. Now, the gross body exists for the shortest time. Exists for the shortest time. It is the most unreal thing. It is the most illusory thing. It is the most ephemeral thing. The most superfluous thing. The most superficial thing is the body. For example, um, the nails of the body. I mean, just give a more perceivable example. Like the nails of the body, they grow and we cut them out, we cut them. They are the most disposable thing in the body. Whereas I would not cut my finger like that as easily as I would cut my nail, unless there's some diabetes or something, then leg has to be amputated. We take a. I mean, it's painful to think about giving up our leg or an arm or a finger or anything like that, right? But nails, not a problem. It's just growing every time and it's a disturbance. Yeah, so, give it up. Our hair, at least for us, men, we shave. So that's the most easy thing. I mean, we can't give up our skin or our body parts so easily, but we can give up the hair and nails, which are, you know, not so important. So similarly, the soul is giving up the bodies every single time, like as if like giving up the nails. So it is actually the least important thing in our entire existence. Whereas our focus is as if that is the most main thing in our life, and other things are optional, non-mandatory things. Like when you fill up a form, online form, there are some which have asterisk. Those are mandatory fields, and then there are others which are like optional. You can fill up if you want to. If you don't want to, you can just skip them. But so we treat life like that and see that our immediate necessities, our immediate bodily necessities, are given the mandatory asterisk field, and the mental and spiritual, intellectual, these are given like optional fields in life. But if you see from our absolute perspective, the body is the most um, disposable thing in our existence. So it is actually the least important thing. The mind, the intelligence, and false ego, these stay with us as long as we stay in this material world. So the mind is much more substantial than the body, much more enduring than the body. The intelligence, the mind, this is the same mind that we have been with for millions upon trillions of years. The same mind, the same intelligence, the same false ego. So it is actually much more enduring than the body. And yet, we give such little importance to it. and the soul, which we actually are, we don't even believe. At least we believe we have a mind. We believe. Although we cannot see it, we cannot taste it, smell it, touch it, hear it. But we, of course, know there is a mind because we're thinking with it. Right? So there's some tangibility in it, like something tangible. Like I'm actually thinking with it. So, in fact, it is actually the leader of the senses. Leader is more important now. The the follower is more important. Leader is more important. But yet, the mind is is the thing that we give least importance to. We give more importance to the physical things and intelligence and false ego than the soul, which we actually are. Without which the mind, intelligence, false ego wouldn't exist. The bodies wouldn't exist. The bodies that we are having every single lifetime wouldn't exist if it's not for the soul. That is the foundation of our existence. We are the existence. Everything is actually built around us. This body, this mind, and everything. But we have the least. We almost don't believe that there is a soul. That means we don't believe that we exist even. And of course, what to speak of the existence of the Supreme Lord? Our existence, our understanding of our existence is the existence of this body. That's all our understanding is. Um, and medical science also thinks that mind and thinking power is based on you know our brain condition, which is in one way yes, but not that the thinking is based on the brain condition. It is limited by the brain condition. The real mind of the pure living entity has unlimited powers. you know just by his thinking, he can, again I give the example of Narad Muni. He can go anywhere, everywhere, just by the power of his mind, and great yogis also can do that. But our brain, our this brain which people study, the neuroscientists who study the brain, you know, and study the brain waves, to understand mental states. They think that the brain has something which enable us to think. No, the brain actually limits our thinking power. Only as much as the brain allows, the mind is able to think within this body. Just like our physical movements are limited by our physical body, our mental movements are also limited by the brain that we have. We can only think that far with our intelligence. But actually, real spiritual intelligence, the pure intelligence of the soul, can understand way more things. And we can understand that as we go higher in the higher planetary systems. Or even if you look at this planet itself, the dog and me, what is the difference between the dog and me? The soul is exactly the same. Pandita Samadarshina. Shunichaiva Swapakecha. Pandita Samadarshina. He, you know, Brahmane Gavihastini Shunichaiva Swapakecha. So he sees everything equal because he sees the soul. But then why the dog, if he's equal to me, why he's not able to understand what what the Bhagavad-gītā is or something, and we can at least understand something? Because in the dog's body there is a conditioning. That's why we're called conditioned souls. According to our condition, we are limited by that. Our eyes, our ears, our senses, our mind, and everything is limited by the body that we get. So the scientists think otherwise. They think the brain is the cause of thinking. Spiritually speaking, yes, but it is actually limiting the process of thinking, limited to the brain, how much the brain allows. Um, so, in fact, our thinking is transmitted to this body through the brain. It's the other way around. It's not that the brain, something happens and then we are able to think. No. When we think, then the brain, you know, fires and then sends signals to the body, and then, the body reacts. So it is the other way around. So we got it all reversed, in the reversed order. So the most important thing we give least importance to. The least important thing we give the most importance. This is Maya. And why am I saying this? All this because if we have to cetasā nānya-gāminā, why is like even in the previous verse, um, what did Krishna say? Tasmāt sarveshu kāleshu māṁ anusmara yuddhecha. Mayi arpita manobuddhi. Invest your intelligence and mind in thinking of me. Why the mind? Now there are so many rules like how we should dress, how we should conduct ourselves, how we should behave, and what sort of articles we should use for worshipping the Lord, and what are the ingredients of such service, the paraphernalia of service, and everything. All these seemingly external things. Even a temple, for example, right? It is made of bricks and like mortar and everything, external things, and everything externally. Like we are chanting with our beads. All these are made of some, material, and book is made of some material. So all these are external paraphernalia. So why are they? And there is time, like day to night and everything. All these are external things. So why then we have so many rules concerning these external things? Like we have to wake up at this time, we have to wear like this, we have to put on the tilak, we have to eat like this. These are all external things, and these are the things that we have to use for worship. So many things, right? Like that. Now all those, or even other activities like external, seemingly external activities. For example, just recently, all the devotees have gone to a pilgrimage. All the ISKM devotees, many of the ISKM devotees, they went for a pilgrimage. So that's again, you're actually taking a flight and going to a place somewhere, like, and visiting all those holy places and coming. Why are we doing all these things, which are seemingly external? To control the mind, to fix the mind on Krishna. Now we are pretty distracted. So to bring the distracted mind to Krishna, wherever the mind is getting distracted, if we use that propensity to find Krishna there and Krishna there and Krishna there and Krishna there, then wherever my mind goes, it is going to Krishna. So these things, all these vratas, tapa, japa, everything, all these are meant for our controlling the mind, to fix it on Krishna. That is the real thing. You see, building a temple for Krishna is a very difficult project, especially in a country like Singapore, which is very expensive. Now, even tougher than building that temple is to build a temple in our own heart. Because what does that mean by temple in our own heart? Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung Mama Mana Mandire. In the temple of my heart, please reside. Raha Nishidin, day and night, please reside in the temple of my heart. O Krishna Murari, Sri Krishna Murari. So, what is that temple? Temple is a place where the Lord is constantly worshipped. And therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was once applauded, praised by some gentlemen. They said, he said, "Oh, Swamiji, I mean, you have done excellent work. You have built so many temples." Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "My real project, my real goal is to build a temple in everyone's heart." The temple building project or any such project or Rath Yatra, all these festivals and everything, we spend great amounts of money even to do so many things. But all that is actually for one thing, to control the mind. We have to give much more importance to our mental state, even when we are doing service. Our mental state, if it is distracted, and if we are just mechanically doing service or chanting without actually focusing on what we are doing and absorbing our mind and intelligence, maya arpita manobuddhi, if we don't do that, then we are actually missing out on the real purpose of those seemingly external activities. sensory activities. Because the whole point of those activities is to get our mind to fix on Krishna. But if our mind is somewhere else and we are doing this externally, well, in the beginning that may be the way how it starts, because it can't happen overnight. But this is something we have to think about and constantly refine in our practice. And that's how we come to the stage of cetasā nānya-gāminā. The art is to constantly check ourselves against the real standards that are required for our deliverance, for our, being in Krishna consciousness. Often, even in spiritual life, even in Krishna consciousness, especially in the third class platform, we get so much distracted by seemingly unrelated things, which we think are so related. For example, if we see some devotee, oh, he's not doing as much as I am doing, why he's not doing? Well, from a managerial perspective, yes, we have to make sure everyone is engaged. But when I'm not there in that responsibility of a manager, when my real project is to work on my own spiritual life, then I can take I should take every situation to my advantage. If somebody is doing less service and I'm doing more service, or there is more service entrusted to me, I must feel fortunate. I must not feel disgruntled. Hey, what is this? Of course, service gets to a point where one has to learn how to delegate. One has to learn how to distribute his services and engage everyone in the service. That is also there. But for my own mind, if I have a lot of service at my hands, that is actually the most fortunate position to be in this entire material and spiritual world. But if we have a problem with that means we have got our priorities wrong. We're getting distracted by things which are actually harmful, which are not related to our advancement, which are detrimental to our advancement. It's easy to find faults with others, but refining our activity, our Krishna consciousness, means to constantly look for our faults and correct them. Krishna said, cetasā nānya-gāminā. Am I there? No. So I think let's work on that first. So that is a realistic evaluation of myself and being focused on my advancement. And I would like to show a few verses. There is this verse, 7:15-28. षड्वर्गसंयमैकान्ताः सर्वान् नियमचोदनाः तदन्तायदिनो योगान् आवहेयुः श्रमावहाः. Ritualistic ceremonies, regulative principles, austerities, and the practice of yoga are all meant to control the senses and mind. That's it. But even after one is able to control the senses and mind, if he does not come to the point of meditation upon the Supreme Lord, all such activities are simply labor in frustration. So all these ritualistic ceremonies, for example, initiation ceremony, it's a ritual. I mean, there is the fire, sacrifice, and then so many mantras being chanted, so the grains are thrown in the fire, and all the paraphernalia and everything that goes with it, right? Why is that done? If the inherent core substance of that initiation ceremony is one's feeling of surrender towards the Guru and one's complete acceptance of the order of the Guru, which happens in the heart, which is a resolve that we do in our heart and we manifest it in our words and actions. That is what is the real thing about. then why is there this whole ceremony? How is that even connected to this resolve that we need to have, and um, acceptance of, you know, servitude to the spiritual master, which is actually a internal thing? Why is there an external ceremony with fire, with grains being thrown there, with some mantras being chanted, and you know all these things, and you know to bathe and come to that place and sit down? There are so many things that happen in a ritual, right? And with ghee, rice grains are involved, so many things, external, seemingly external things. What have they to do with our resolve? The thing is this: all these are meant to control the senses and mind. So yes, the resolve is the core thing. And by acknowledging, see, as I told in my previous lecture as well, in the Bhagavatam lecture, the witnesses are always there. Whether we do it in front of the fire and take the vow and everything, or if we just think in our mind in complete solitude, the Lord is observing each and every move of ours, each and every thought, and each and every word, each and every action that we perform. Everything is being observed. There's nothing that is going unnoticed in this world. See this. सूर्योऽग्निः खं मरुद्देवः सोमः सन्ध्याहनीदिशः कं कुः स्वयं धर्म इति ह्येते दैह्यस्य साक्षिणः. The sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and Supersoul himself all witness the activities of the living entity. Every living entity is being observed, closely monitored by all these agents of the Supreme Lord. So, witnesses are always there. But by doing this, the thing about this is we are not aware of the witnesses. And therefore, we think that we can do something, you know, without anybody noticing. And that's where we fail. So, if, like in a marriage, it is the commitment of the man and the woman to stay in marriage that is actually the real thing. But a huge grand ceremony is performed in front of all the relatives, and in front of um, fire, everything, and photos and everything is declared. It's like openly declared. Why? What is that? Why is it necessary? If you want to have a child, you can have. One can have children just secretly having some sex and some without anybody knowing. Why there should be this grand thing, that um, ceremony is, after all, the feeling of the husband towards the wife and wife towards the husband and their commitment to each other. But by doing that, by doing the ceremony, in our mind, it is being solidified. Okay, you know what? I have declared in front of everyone, and it's reality now. I have to commit to this. So we are acknowledging. We are physically seeing the witnesses because of our base nature, where we believe things only when we see it. So therefore, there are rituals which allow us to see in order to convince our mind. So therefore, in front of the Vaishnavas, in front of the spiritual master, in front of the fire, in front of the with the mantras and the kirtan, in front of the deities, we take vow of initiation. And even if I secretly want to break the principles, everybody already knows I'm initiated. I'm a disciple. Now, this is not a very high grade of disciple, where when I'm having a desire to do something wrong, but I'm controlling myself only because I have declared myself as a disciple. I should not be doing this. But in the initial stages, that is a good deterrence. That is a very positive deterrence. Even though that is the only motive of of course, it must be supplemented by Krishna consciousness. It's not an end in itself. It's not that because the ritual has happened, therefore the devotee will now be completely pure from now on. No. It is the main thing is that we have to accept, resolve with our mind. But these things will help because now we're in the external stage. The real thing is the acceptance of the order of the spiritual master. Just like Prabhupada said, when I met my spiritual master in 1982, I immediately took him as my guru in my heart. But he was initiated only in 1933, 11 years later, after his first meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But in his heart, he accepted in that first day itself. And he took the instruction to heart and kept it in his heart, and he worked towards it till the end of his life, and you can see the success. Whereas there were other disciples also who took the initiation, who spent so much time and everything with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but in their mind, they did not resolve so strongly. They do not have such a strong resolve. So these things are just helping us in our taking the strong resolve, taking up the strong resolve of following the order of the spiritual master, but they are not by themselves the purifying factors. So it is our mind which we have to fix our intelligence fixed on Krishna. That will really help us. Not the external things. Oh, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, so I will be saved. Or I'm doing this ritual, so I will be saved. I'm building a temple, so I will be saved. No, none of these things will save us. The thing that will save us is our absorption in this. That's why Krishna says, Mayarpita Mano Buddhi. Of course, even if we do without complete absorption, Krishna is kind enough to, register whatever we have done, even unconsciously or, like not so properly. That is Krishna's grace. That is Krishna's mercy. But on our end, we are not doing our duty properly, actually. So our devotion will not blossom like that because it is full of offenses. Krishna, out of his own, kindness, may revive our devotional service, maybe in this life, maybe in next life, because of whatever little bit ajnata sukriti we have done, or even after knowing we have done mistakes and still we did something, so Krishna may remember that and be kind upon us. But on our end, we are not taking it seriously. So the more importance should be given to the thinking process. All the ritualistic ceremonies, everything are meant, as we saw in the previous verse, okay, are meant to control the senses and mind. That is the real deal. That is the real core of it all. But even after one is able to control the senses, if he does not come to the point of meditation upon the Supreme Lord, all such activities are labor and frustration. Sometimes jnanis, they may, even in our devotional service, we may come to a point where we are slightly less distracted by material, um, you know, attractions. But if we become confident in our position that I will not fall down, I will not resist, then we may become complacent in our remembering Krishna. And yaesham puruṣaṁ sakshat atma prabhavameshwaram na bhajanti avajananti sthanat bhrashta patantyadha. So if we do not, with that confidence, with that, sense of security in our achievement of a little bit of, you know, control, if we become complacent, that will again drag us down. Again, we'll become uncontrollable. I think one, yeah. See, this is from the Shrutigana Stuti. I think it's called Prayers of the Personified Vedas. विजितहृषिक वायुभिरदान्तमनस्तुरगं य इह यतन्ति यन्तुमतिलोलमुपायखिदः व्यसनशतान्विताः समवहाय गुरोश्चरणं वणिज इवाजसन्त्यकृतकर्णधरा जलधौ. The mind is like an impetuous horse. Impetuous horse is an uncontrollable wild horse. Just wild. You cannot ride it. I mean, it's just horrible. That even persons who have regulated their senses and breath cannot control. Those in this world who try to tame the uncontrolled mind, but who abandon the feet of their spiritual master, encounter hundreds of obstacles in the cultivation of various distressful practices. You see, just um, just checking if okay, everything is still okay. Good. So those in this world who try to tame the uncontrolled mind, but who abandon the feet of their spiritual master. That means if we abandon the feet of spiritual master, means abandon the order of the spiritual master. And no, I'm following the order. I'm chanting 16 rounds. I'm following four principles. And so I'm following. Following to what extent? How much absorbed am I in that order, the spiritual master? That is the question. Yes, okay, man. I may be chanting 16 rounds and following four principles. What about the 10 offenses? Am I trying to actively avoid them? Or I'm just saying that no, Prabhupada just said 16 rounds, four principles, so I'm just going back to Godhead. I'm doing that. Yeah, it doesn't matter how I do it. It does matter. It does matter. Because Prabhupada not only said 16 rounds and four principles, he also gave us the 10 offenses that we have to avoid. And the whole program for us. Krishnartha Khila Cheshta. Everything he has given us, that is the only way to remain cetasā nānya-gāminā. Otherwise, we will be distracted by many things in this world. And our time is just slipping through every second. So those in this world who try to tame the uncontrolled mind, but who abandon the feet of their spiritual master, encounter hundreds of obstacles in their cultivation of various distressful practices. Even in our spiritual life, we will encounter hundreds of obstacles. Now, there may be obstacles in the matter of service, but those are, good, because then we become more dependent on the Lord and more we will try to do for the Lord. But these hundreds of obstacles means we becoming distracted from the service. That is the obstacle. The obstacle is not some difficulty that we're facing in the matter of executing the service. For example, if, to establish Krishna consciousness in certain countries is very difficult. And sometimes, you know, dealing with the population who are very antagonistic, very sense gratificatory, this may be difficult. But that is, you know, difficulty in the matter of service. That is actually not an obstacle. That is, in fact, a stepping stone for us to grow in our spiritual life. The obstacle is when we get distracted from the service attitude and go into sense gratificatory mode and unable to keep my vows, unable to keep my sanctity in Krishna consciousness. That is the obstacle. Encounter hundreds of obstacles in their cultivation of various distressful practices. Losing my faith in the process and inventing some other things, having some other conceptions of life or activity or anything in my mind. These are the obstacles. For Pandavas, there was no problem in facing all the difficulties that they've been put through in their life. Those were not their obstacles. Kunti Devi was saying, my real obstacle, Krishna, you are going away. All this while you were with us, now you are going away. That is my obstacle. I rather have all those difficulties if you are willing to stay with us through those difficulties. So, our forgetfulness of Krishna is the real problem, is the real obstacle. So here it is said, O unborn Lord, they are like merchants on a boat in the ocean who have failed to employ a helmsman. A helmsman is a person who is a captain. So if you don't have a captain for our ship, the guru is the captain of our ship. But if we give him up if I don't follow the order of the captain, then I cannot stay in the same boat. I will either fall off or I'll be kicked out of the boat. And if we don't have a captain at all, then the boat is at the mercy of the winds, the mercy of the storm. So this is where our focus should be on the our mental absorption in our service. Bhavagrahi Janardhan. Why Krishna is the acceptor of not the ingredients of or the paraphernalia of service, but rather he is the acceptor of the mood of service. That again shows that our bhava is very important. Now, the opposite argument can be yes, so bhava is important, so my bhava is there, so it doesn't matter if my externals are not, say, up to par or agreeable to devotees. This is another side of Maya. Because if my internal um, thought process and my mental condition is about Krishna consciousness, and if I'm convinced of it, it manifests in my external behavior, even to the point of insignia, like the tilak, the shaven head, dress, and everything. These are maybe external symbols, but if internally, if I'm convinced that I have to serve Krishna, I have to I have to fulfill the orders of my spiritual master, and I should not do this just for show. Oh, just when I come to temple, then I dress like a super good devotee. But when I'm elsewhere, I just blend in. So this is what I call fixing versus mixing. We have to be fixed. We have to fix our mind on Krishna, not mix our mind with whatever we are, like the chameleon. Wherever the surrounding, he will adopt that color and adopt that um, you know seeming texture. That should not be our position. We have to remain our Krishna conscious self because it is good for my own mind. I'm not doing this for a show to show some devotees that you see I'm a good of a devotee I am. But I'm doing this for my own life, for my own good. I mean, for my own relationship with Krishna. And if it is for showing, then is Krishna not seeing every moment of our lives? So even if I'm alone, Krishna is watching. So he is still in the audience, looking at me. So even if I do it for a show, the only thing is I don't have faith that Krishna is actually watching, and I take on an attire or a disposition that is not devotional. So if whichever way you look at it, whether you're doing it for a show or for your own self, we have to be true to it all the time. All the time. And if I internally am very convinced, then externally I will have zero problems adhering to whatever Krishna asks me to adhere to. If Krishna says you have to put a tilak, I have to put a tilak. No. So, as much as possible, we should always think of how to follow it rather than as much as possible, like don't follow it and follow it only when you really, 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 really need to. No, it should be the other way around. You may give up some of the you know things only when you really, really, really need to, but as much as possible follow it. The attitude is different, you see. So this depends on our priorities in our mind, in our heart, what we have taken as a priority. So if the order of the spiritual master is our priority, then we have to do whatever he says. As much as possible we have to do. Only when it is absolutely not possible, okay, then some of the things, like not, like, no, yes, Prabhu, actually that is right. Sometimes it is not possible for me to eat prasadam, so I will eat outside. No, 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 no. Some things are just absolutely non-negotiable. Completely non-negotiable. Um, some things, like maybe, you know, going in a dhoti to the office, I don't think they will accept that. So if one is working and then he has to go to the office, then yeah, maybe that's understandable. But he should still eat prasadam, he should still chant, and if possible he should still put on tilak, you know as much as possible one should. And this is how, I mean, if you see in other faiths, in Islam for example, they have stuck, of course, I mean there are many who do not follow, and but as a whole, generally speaking, there is much more the presence of um, Islam insignia in the world than any other religion in the world. Insignia means the externals, like for example the dress. In every diplomatic meeting of countries, heads of countries, everybody goes in a suit, suit, tie, and coat, and everything like that. But if you see the Arabs, they wear their robes and go like that, with a cloth on their head, checkered red and white, and then there is a some ring on the top. I don't know what they call it, but they have their look. They don't care. Oh, I'm going for a international diplomatic meeting, so I have to like dress like a smart, like suit, boot, and everything. No, they follow whatever they want to follow. So the pride that they have, and people will accept. It's not that there is a rule that you have to go in a coat and suit. No, they are the proof. They are wearing something which nobody else wears, and people are accepting them, and thing business moves on, right? And in the workplaces also, hijab for the ladies, or something like that, they are more visible than any other religion. I'm not saying that everybody is following 100%. No, I'm not saying that. But to the extent that they are willing to put their foot down, no, 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 I belong to this, so I have to wear like this. Okay, then people will listen. But if I'm like, it's actually optional. It is a good thing to say to a newcomer, to encourage him. Like Prabhupada did say, like one some eminent personality was talking to Prabhupada, and he asked, "Is it necessary for a devotee to have robes and everything?" Prabhupada said, "No, it's not necessary. Um, it's not at the core of the whole thing. But once you are, accustomed, once you are, convinced, once you're comfortable in the whole thing, then you will want to wear. Just like if I'm a, you know, say sportsman, I'm a wear a sports dress. So if I'm a, you know, devotee, why not wear the devotional dress? So as much as possible, I should do it. Only in extreme circumstances, when I absolutely cannot do it for some real good reason, yeah, it may be considered. Just because they're external does not mean that we should not do it. Because all these externals are the ones which are involved in rituals. There is rituals are all based on external things, right? As I said already, the initiation ceremony, all the ingredients, different things that we use and everything. But the whole thing is internally the core, the resolve of the disciple to follow the order of the spiritual master, A.K. Hakurunandana, with single pointed attention as life and soul. So that is at the core of it. But why then these externals are necessary then? It is to help our mind fix it. But if there is no external, wall, these are actually walls guarding our devotion. Because if I say wear like this versus I wear like, you know, some shirts and shorts and something like that. If I wear a shirt and shorts and everything like that, then in my mind I will think, even I mean in the beginning stage, if I want to do something wrong, if I want to maybe I go out, I'm walking on the road and I see a movie poster. Yeah, actually, I think I want to watch that movie. Let me go in, some karmi clothes and watch it. Nobody will know. And when I come to the temple and I'm all decked up, all devotional clothing and everything. Who lost here? Devotees would see you at the temple. Yeah, they are still thinking he's a very nice devotee. And yes, I may not have lost any trust from any of the devotees, and people still respect me as a devotee, and I haven't, maybe, yes, but who lost here? I lost, because my time has been spent watching some stupid thing, and then now my mind is thinking of all those things, and I'm willfully disobeying the order of spiritual master. So in the end, who loses? We lose. We're cheating ourselves. There's no point. So having this understanding is good, but to reinforce that with additional layers of security, like putting on the correct dress. If I wear like this and I cannot go to the cinema hall and like sit down there with the robes, with the what brahmachari robes, and sit down there watching some love story movie. No, I can't be doing that. So yes, in my mind I have to renounce it, but externally also. And even if one has come to the point of completely controlling his mind, and you know what, whichever dress I'm in, I can control my mind. Even if I'm in that state, I should still wear, because I have to show examples to others who are maybe not so advanced yet. So we should not give up any of the seemingly external things, even if we are qualified enough, or even if we are like think ourselves capable enough to handle any situation in Krishna consciousness. You should still not give up, to keep the order intact, because that order will actually save the population. Otherwise, people will quote examples out of context. Oh, he did that, she did that, so I can also do. So if he or she goes to hell, and I can also go. So where do I want to go? Okay, if somebody is not following, or because he is not following, I also won't follow. If he is spoiling his spiritual life, why I have to spoil my spiritual life? And to the contrary, if he is doing nice service, I should also do. Why don't I think like that? Only when somebody is not following, that becomes an excuse for me not following. But when somebody is following, why can that not be a reason for me to follow? Why we always accept the negative examples and take that as our role model rather than the positive role models? We impose the ideals of the positive role models on others, and accept the negative role models on us, which means to say, oh, he is not following according to Shastra. See, Dhruv Maharaj did like this, Prahlad Maharaj did like this, but he is doing anyway. For me, you see, he is doing like that. Why can't I do? So for him, the reference is Dhruv Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. For me, the reference is him who is not perfect. Why? So we should be the other way around. We should be strict with ourselves and lenient with others. Because if we are strict with ourselves, that is the best way to preach. By even if I want to change someone, if I think that he's not following, no man, let me follow. Am I following? If I say yes, okay, good for you, then follow. And by following, eventually it will, you know, get to the other person, and it becomes infectious. If one is sufficiently Krishna conscious, it will become infectious. Many people became devotees just by looking at Prabhupada. They gave their lives just by looking at him. Um, why? Because it's so saturated with Krishna consciousness that it is very attractive. Rather than Forcing somebody by force, okay, follow, follow, follow. Yeah, there is some force required. But make it attractive to them. How? Introduce some fun and games. We will have Bhagavad-gītā class and we'll have fun and games, attract people. No, no, no. That's not the way. And in some ISKCON camps, the Sankirtan, Nagar Sankirtan program, where they chant on the streets, Sankirtan party. So the women are put in the front of the Sankirtan party with full makeup, completely in the bodily concept, and deck themselves all nicely with garlands and everything. And men are like tails of the woman, singing at the back. The women are all dancing, like everything in the front. I'm talking about Indradyumna Swami of ISKCON and his so-called Sankirtan party. So they want to attract. They want to make it attractive. They want to make Krishna consciousness attractive to people. How do they do that? Attract them with lust. Put women in front. And somebody was telling me, like, who was telling me? That, in fact, there was one of the ladies, leaders in the Sankirtan party. I mean, in the sense that she leads all the ladies and, gets them all dressed up and, ready for the event. So she even told, it seems, to the ladies that wear your sari in a way which is a bit revealing so that, you know, not much is covered, so that, it is a little more attractive to people. What is this? What is this? What kind of. This is rubbish. This is absolute rubbish. This is not how we make Krishna consciousness attractive. The way Krishna consciousness becomes attractive is when we seriously follow it, and those who are serious, those who are with the right mindset, they will come. We don't want womanizers to be attracted to this movement only to see the woman. No. And women should never be in the front. I'm sorry. They should never be. So, men, what Prabhupada taught us, yeah, men and women, he sent both. But to put women in the front and men at the back and attract people with lust, some colorful, girls who are dancing about, prancing about, that's not what we want. That's not a spiritual presentation. So, to make it attractive, if we are serious in our business, it will automatically attract the right kind of people. Actually, Krishna consciousness is very attractive on its own. It does not need any embellishment of anything else for to make it attractive. As we know, when Krishna wears his ornaments, Krishna beautifies the ornaments rather than the ornaments beautifying Krishna. And devotional service to Krishna is the ornament of the devotee, and anything else, jati japastapaha apranasyeva hi dehasya mandanam lokaranjanam. Decorations on a dead body. The life in anybody, any material, credits and everything, all these things are decorations on a dead body. Then what is a live body then? One who has devotional service, he has life. So the life is the most decorating factor. Like a person, a woman, if she's decorated with a nice dress, but if she's dead, if it's a dead body of a woman that is being decorated, who is attracted to that? They're petrified, horrified, terrified. They're not attracted to that. What makes a decorated woman attractive? It is because of the soul. The soul is what makes it attractive, not the rest of it. Um, if the soul is taken out, so the most attractive feature is the soul. So the soul's activity is Krishna consciousness. And if one is strong in Krishna consciousness, that itself is very attractive. You see Prabhupada, is he not attractive? Is he not attractive? He's very attractive. Extremely attractive. Even his talk and everything. Yes, many times he makes a lot of jokes also. But what are his kind of jokes? They are fully pregnant with Krishna conscious meaning. One second. Am I still on? My camera is still on. Oh, wait a second. Okay. So the most important thing is the Krishna consciousness. That is what makes everything attractive. So we should just stick to our, Krishna consciousness program and be convinced about it. That conviction is an infectious. The conviction with which we do it. We always think, oh, I have to just do it and it will become attractive. How will it become attractive? If that enthusiasm, if we do it with enthusiasm, then the enthusiasm is infectious. So that is what we should, even if you want to preach, the best way to preach is to, you know, just follow our thing properly, achar. Then I can attract others' attention to it. So I have to always think of my own faults and, you know, refine it every day, refine it as much as possible. So on my own, it's very difficult to do. In the association of devotees, it's easier to do. It's much easier. Alone, again, Maya covers us. So always shows us that the body, the bodily work, and these are the most important things in life, and others can take time, when we have more luxury. No, the soul is the most important thing, and that's what we are. And we have vaguest idea of the soul, the most distant, as if it's something very distant. Yeah, soul. What is soul? What is reincarnation? Array, that is our life. That is what we are. That is so distant to us. Whereas the most distant to us, the body, is the most closest to us in our thinking. The soul, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, and then the external body, and then the relatives, and whatever belongs to the body. But we want all those things that so seemingly belong to this body, my family, my this, my that, my this, my that, as the most important thing. Those are the most external things. Those are the most superfluous. Those are the most unnecessary things that we don't need to worry about. But that is the only thing we worry about. And what we need to worry about, we don't worry about. So, anucintayan, yāti pārthānucintayan. Um, so, if you see this verse, today's verse, um, it is actually abhidheya and prayojana is mentioned in this. Abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena means it is abhidheya. Like sambandha, abhidheya, prayojana. Sambandha is the knowledge that who we are and who is God and what is our relationship with Him and what is our relationship with the material world and what is everything. To understand things as they are is sambandha, jnana. And there is abhidheya, which is the practice, the engagement in Krishna consciousness service. And then the effect, prayojana is the goal that is to be attained with this practice. Now, yāti means achieves, that is the goal. Pārthānucintayan, so paramaṁ puruṣaṁ divyaṁ. So we will attain the Supreme Lord. We will go back to Godhead. And even in this world, we can be with Godhead. Back to Godhead means we don't need to go anywhere else. Even in this world, we can be with Godhead. A pure devotee does that. And of course, after this life, Krishna takes us back to the spiritual world. That's his mercy. The point is that is the prayojan part of it. But abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena cetasā nānya-gāminā. So this is abhidheya. But this abhidheya cannot be strong if our sambandha jnana is not strong. With sufficient conviction, we take to abhidheya. And if we don't nourish the abhidheya with the sambandha, still, it's not that, oh, I'm in the abhidheya stage, I'm no more in the sambandha stage, I don't need to study any books, I'm in the abhidheya, I'm engagement in devotional service, that's it. I'm engaging in devotional service. I don't need sambandha anymore. I'm in the next stage. No. No. Even in the abhidheya stage, it has to be constantly nourished with sambandha jnana. And that being engaged will help us augment understanding of the signs of Krishna consciousness, and that augmented understanding of Krishna consciousness will drive our activity in Krishna consciousness. And the more we engage in Krishna consciousness, the more we get realization of the sambandha jnana. And in that way, it is just reinforced and reinforced. It's like an avalanche. A single thing starts falling and then it picks up snow, I mean, it becomes a big thing, and the whole thing falls. So it's like that. It will snowball into this huge force that will go into the the to the prayojan. Prayojan means the attainment of love of Godhead. So we cannot obstruct that. If we take out the someone, oh, now I'm in engagement in devotional service, so yeah, I kind of know we are soul, we are say a super soul, I'm servant of Krishna. Okay, fine, fine, fine. Not enough. Yeah, it is enough, but to reinforce our understanding from different angles of vision, from different angles, we have to study every single time, and every time, we will find newer and newer nuances. Krishna will reveal. So ultimately, this anuchintayan means two things. We have to think. Chinta means to think. Chintayan. And anuchintayan means to think according to the Shastra, according to sadhu, according to the Guru, not inventing our own ways of thinking about Krishna. No. Oh, I'll imagine. Oh, I'm dancing with Krishna. I'm playing, like a cowherd boy. Rubbish. Rubbish. Okay. So, Anuchintayan means according to the ways of the authority, in the authoritative manner, which was given to us by Prabhupada, by the spiritual master, not inventing our own ways. Another meaning of Anuchintayan means constantly Chintayan, constantly to think of Krishna. So constantly we have to think of Krishna according to the authoritative prescriptions of Acharya, Sadhu, Shastra, Guru. So that Anuchintayan will happen and without any deviation if we understand the priorities. So just before I end it here, just I'll run you through a few verses and then I will end it here. 15:8. So you already know these verses. I'm actually taking it on iPad. You see, I'm so used to the iPad. I'm taking it on the iPad. Okay. Still is going on. Okay, good. शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्. So just to reinforce the idea that our mental condition, you see, our mind, which we think it is so vague, something mental, like not so visible, it is not so important. No, the mind is the very reason we have our bodies. This body is existing because of the mind. In my previous life, I've thought in certain ways, and that gave rise to this body which I'm seeing now, which is I can feel it. It started off with my mental condition. So, how important is my mental condition now? We underestimate. We underestimate the force of the mind. This is our real problem. We underestimate the power of the mind and take it for granted, and throw away our time just by thinking of utter rubbish. Utter rubbish. Not understanding that how seriously it is affecting us. You know, what is that word? English? Imperceptibly, imperceptible. There is a synonym for imperceptible. That word is used in one of the translations of. Let me see. Taurus. No, the time. Um, what is that? Imperceptible. How come? It starts with P. It's not. Does not start with I. Um, per. Anyway, Maya is like that, imperceptible. Okay, this takes on one kind of body. You see, the living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So, the way Maya works is she makes us think that this body is the most important thing, so focus on this body, and the senses of the body are the most important. Gratify the senses, and in the process of doing that, our mind is getting attached to different objects of senses, and the Maya's real work is there, working with our mind, but it is showing us this, glittery external world, just like today's companies and governments do. So they show us, for example, Facebook, Instagram. Oh, enjoy your time, like YouTube. Enjoy your time, using this app, and like connect with your friends and all that. But behind, what are they doing? Taking all your information. Actually, they're saying, "Hey, find your school friends." Giving us one reason to use the Facebook. That was how Facebook began. Oh, you can find your old friends on Facebook. Oh wow, really? That's how it started in the beginning. So people having an account, and then Facebook, because if you say that I'm so and so school at a certain time of my life, and another person also says I'm the same school at that time of my life, then Facebook will suggest, oh, maybe you know this person. Hey, yeah, I know the guy. Hey, he's on Facebook. Let's connect again. Maybe it's a long lost friend. So that was the thing. But so it's exciting for you, for us. But behind, what are they doing? What is Facebook doing? They're collecting data, and they're collecting the data that this guy studied here, this guy studied everything. They're collecting all kinds of our data. Then they later on, and then they know that now this and this person is a friend. And then later on, it even evolved into greater things. Like, you know, they having Facebook Pixel and Google Pixel and all these things. So they track your browsing data, what websites you visit and everything. What is your likes and dislikes, and based on that promote some advertisement and like that. I mean, there are so many, and these are the more I mean, these are things which we may have noticed. And what are the things going on without even us noticing? For example, a country, immigration department, or the statistical department, or the information department of a country, they have identities of their people, their own people only. A country's government has information about their people, their citizens, or whoever is living there in the country. Say, take for example Singapore. I mean, the government has information of it, but the government does not have information of a person staying in, say, Australia, an Australian citizen. Singapore doesn't have the information. It has to ask Australian government and everything. But just imagine this social media company, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, Meta, now it's called Meta, and even Google and everything. These people have information of people from multi. I mean, how many? More than 100 countries. How much data they have, and the kind of data that the government has is like, okay, his identification number, like passport number, date of birth, and like very objective things. Whereas these social media platforms have much more nuanced information about us. What do we like, who are our friends. How government does not have that kind of information, at least not directly. Yeah? But this one has. And even if my friend is in Africa, this this company knows, whereas the country doesn't know at all. So how much? So what I'm trying to say is this: they're presenting us with one promise. Hey, you can find your friends. Come, come, come! It's a very exciting place. And behind, they have a whole different agenda. So they show you one thing and they do another thing. Maya is exactly like that. Maya will show us, hey, nice food, nice this, nice that, nice, hey, this is beautiful, that is beautiful, this is nice, this is good for you, that is good. While we are chasing all these things, which are attractive, Maya is pulling our consciousness towards all these things and preparing our next body. This attachment. Oh, we follow some Instagram. Oh, dogs, say puppies, like, oh, cute, 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 cute. I'll also get one dog, I'll get one dog. Oh, very cute, very cute. I also post pictures and everything. Yeah, it's all attractive, attractive, get millions of followers, and then what happens? Maya is preparing a dog body for me in the background. It's the most evil way of using our this thing. So that's what Maya is. So present it when one as if it is attractive, but actually creating the most dangerous situation for us in the background. So, but we trust that. So we don't see the bigger picture, and therefore we let our mind go here and there, here and there. But you see, living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions of life from one body to another, as air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते. Now you see, because of my conceptions, because of my thoughts, because of my ideas, which are seemingly harmless, right? I may have certain ideas about life. I may not agree with certain things. I may not. I may agree or certain things with other people or with the government or with the narrative that is being pushed or something. Sometimes I won't agree. Okay, as long as you keep it with yourself, fine. But actually, you see, all those ideas, all those this repository of ideas and conceptions, these are called conceptions. Our worldview is what is driving to create our next body. The kind of shape of body that I have, the exact shape of my body, the exact mental condition, my mood, everything, all these things, my intelligence or my the family that I'm born in, the circumstances that I have is depending on my conceptions in the past. And our present conceptions will create our next physically tangible bodies, which will give us physical tangible experiences, which are suffering or so called enjoyment. I would say suffering or distraction. Actually, it's not enjoyment, it's a distraction. Both are distraction. One is, you know, more of a distraction than the other. So we are getting now we think our body is very important. I have to do this, I have to do this. Why this became so important? Because my mind had certain conceptions. And it will continue. It may not seem like a very big thing, but if it can keep us here for trillions of years, trillions, I mean, how powerful is that? We actually greatly underestimate the power of the mind, which we throw away our mind into anything and everything, and agree with anything, disagree with anything, whatever we want. We just treat it very loosely, um, but that's what we should work on the most, and that's where this Shravanam Kirtanam comes in. Very, very important. Otherwise, I mean, I'm honestly doing this to control my mind. Many times I told this. I'm doing this class to control my mind, just to convince myself that this is important. Yes, I have many services. Yes, there are many things to do. But honestly, within all that thing also, again and again, get in touch with the philosophy and every time keep, because as we're doing our services, we should always know that this is this is the reason why we're engaging in the service. This is why it is so important. This is why I have to be engaged, not just to show. So what is this verse 15:9? The living entity thus taking another gross body obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. It enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So how powerful is the mind which creates this entire body? Yeah. Next. प्रामन्तं स्थितं वा भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितं विमूढा नानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः. Foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So, what is this being trained in knowledge? Not just like doing it reading the book once, now I have knowledge, Prabhu. No, it doesn't happen like that. Our knowledge fades. We may have knowledge, yes. If we read, okay, we have now clear knowledge, but then it will fade. It is like this. Maya is just like the dust. Cheto darpanam arjuna. We have to clean our mind, the mirror of our mind. But if you notice, if you know, I mean, any common man would know that if I clean my mirror, it will not remain clean. Cheto darpanam archanam. Oh, I have cleansed my mirror now. Okay, now it will be clean forever. No, dust will again come. So cleanliness requires effort on our part to constantly clean. Why we sweep and mop our rooms, our houses, our temple every day? Why? Because it needs the default state it will resort to is dirty. It'll become dirty by default. Only effort, by effort, we can keep it clean. So by default, we always go towards more of ignorance. It takes effort to be in more of goodness. So it is always an upstream, you know, boating or swimming upstream. If you stop swimming, you will go downstream. It's not that I stop swimming, I just stay there. In the river, if I stop swimming, I'll just go downstream. Hey, why am I moving if I'm not moving? Yeah, because the current is like that. The current of Maya is towards the mode of ignorance. It is Tama. This is avidya. This world is avidya. So it always gravitate towards ignorance, mode of ignorance. It takes effort to go upstream. It takes effort to climb the mountain, go against the gravity. Falling from the mountain is not a problem. You jump and then fall from the mountain. That's not a problem. To climb the mountain is the you know toughest part. So this Chetodarpanamarjanam, this cleansing, has to happen every single day. So this knowledge, yes, I have understood now, now the body, but this will fade again. It will again be covered with the dust of materialism, which will make us think that, it's okay. Like we have a devotee here, not exactly a devotee, but he's like, sometimes he comes. When he was 16-year-old, now he's I think 40 something years old. When he was a 16-year-old, he went with Sundar Prabhu and the party to Cambodia on a preaching tour. Um, and on their way back, they had this accident on the boat where the boat completely broke into pieces and everybody fell into the water on the Sonletap lake in Cambodia. I think it's the biggest lake in the world, something like that. Um, so in that lake, it's almost like an ocean, very very big. So in that lake, they were going on this boat to cross it. It was a speedboat. So it was just dang, 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 it was hitting the waves and hitting the water like that. And it was hitting hard, and it was sounding a bit odd. And then after some time, it just broke open. The whole thing just broke open. It couldn't take that impact, and everything just fell apart, and everybody was in the water. And this particular boy, he was 16-year-old back then. He was the worst. Actually, thankfully, nobody died in that trip. There were devotees and also non-devotees. Others, I mean, it was a public boat, public transport thing. Maybe about 20 odd people were there in the boat. So fell in the water, and he went. He was sinking, and he was going to die. There was one person there, who was like a diver and everything. So he came and somehow rescued and brought him to the surface and then held him. They were waiting in that water for 3 hours plus before some help arrived. So now when he was saved and everything, he told that he saw his whole life coming as a flash before him, like all the important scenes of his life just came as a flash. So he had a near death experience. I mean, how much it will put things in perspective, right? If you really think about it. Wow, I went through this. Wow, my whole life flashed before me. Wow, it's like it hits you hard, right? But surprisingly for this person, it did not hit very hard. He's still not a devotee, and he's just like comes sometimes whenever he wants, like very relaxed about it. Why? Because the dust of materialism is so powerful that even when we are shown the near-death experience, where that is what death is going to be, and then you have to prepare for it. Yeah, it did not happen this time, but it will happen one day. So at that time, I may not be in a position. So I have to practice now, and something it should ignite some kind of thinking. But unfortunately, did not happen for this person. It comes sometimes, but honestly, he's not taking it seriously. So that is how Maya is. The dust always comes back. That is why it is called Anucintayan. We have to constantly think of Krishna. Constantly read this, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Seva. Everything should be constantly done so that we refine and refine and refine it every single time. It may not be very visible refinement. Oh, yesterday I was not thinking about Krishna. Today I was thinking suddenly about Krishna for out of 24 hours, now 12 hours. I'm thinking, oh, yesterday was like 12 minutes and now 12 hours. No, it won't happen that way. It'll take time, yes, but we have to stay focused. With the association of devotees, which with hearing and all this, it will increase that. Now, before we close, this one verse. Actually, this is also a few verses. Actually, this is Vasudev speaking to Kṛṣṇa, trying to preach to him and not kill his wife, which is Kamsa's sister, Devaki. So he starts off like this: One, O great hero, one who takes birth is sure to die, for death is born with the body. One may die today or after hundreds of years, but death is sure for every living entity. These are, important instructions not only for Kamsa but every one of us, right? देहे पंचत्वमापन्ने देहि कर्मानुगो वशः देहान्तरम् अनुप्राप्य प्राक्तनं त्यजते वपुः. Now, when the present body turns to dust and is again reduced to 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the proprietor of the body, the living being, automatically receives another body of material elements along according to his fruitive activities. When the next body is obtained, he gives up the present body. Then example is given. प्रजंस्तिष्ठन् पदैकेन यथैवैकेन गच्छति यथा तृणजलौकैवं देहि कर्मगतिं गतः. Just as a person traveling on the road rests one foot on the ground and then lifts the other, or as a worm on a vegetable transfers itself to one leaf and then gives up the previous one, the conditioned soul takes shelter of another body and then gives up the one he had before. So we think that we are giving up this body and then accepting another body. We're accepting another body and then giving up this body. Huh? Where? How come? Suppose I'm supposed to become a dog next life. Hey, where I'm getting a dog's body now? No, I'm giving up and then only taking it. No, because the mind has already created the dog's body. Once it is just like the example is given just very nicely here. When we're walking, we don't we put one foot forward and then take the back foot from the ground. We don't take out this foot and without putting this foot forward. No, then we will fall down, right? This foot in the air, this foot in the air, and then I'm just like suspended. No, that's not how it happens. We put one foot and then lift this foot, and then put another foot forward and then lift the back foot. Similarly, the worm going from one leaf, like this, from one leaf to another. So, suppose from this surface to this surface, like this. First, it goes here, it touches here. Once it gets a good foothold, then it gives up this. So, that's the whole point. So, similarly, example is very, very important. We have already created our next body before we have left this body. That is how, where the mind has already captured that body. Now, give up this gross body and then simply accept the other one. Whereas in the Bhagavad-gītā, the air carries aromas and the aroma is, like the air carries, I mean, if it passing through a rose garden, it will create, I mean, it will carry the scent of the rose. So, because the air has the smell of the rose, I can understand that this air passed through a rose garden. So, the smell of the rose is the indication of what its previous state was, the air where it was previously. So, similarly, the soul is like the air, and the modes of material nature is like the smell. So, the air is carrying the smell. So, similarly, the soul is carrying the modes of material nature, the conceptions that we have created, which is a soup of the three modes, like different proportions. It is mixed into a soup, and we're carrying that flavor of that conceptions into our next existence. And if it passes through a drain, then it'll have the stench of the drain. So it depends. The air has nothing to do. The air is not smelly or the air is not fragrant. Air has no odor. Similarly, the soul is not good or soul is not bad. The soul is transcendental to material good and bad. But in fact, in that way, it is always good. Um, but it exhibits different. Like one person, is a rapist. One person is a very learned brahmana. Another person is a dog, and different concepts. But actually, this is not the soul. The soul is above all these things. But they are carrying these kind of flavors of their conceptions, and therefore their activities are like that. But the point is this: we accept one body and give up the previous one. This is very important. Um, this purport, although is yeah, this is actually Prabhupada's purport. The next one is also very important. Yes. Okay. So next one. स्वप्ने यथा पश्यति देहमीदृशं मनोरथेनाभिनिविष्टचेतनः दृष्टश्रुताभ्यां मनसानुचिन्तयन् प्रप प्रपद्यते तत्किमपि ह्यपस्मृतिः. Anuchintayan, again the word manasa anucintayan, yāti pārthānucintayan, yāti pārthānucintayan. So you see this, having experienced a situation by seeing or hearing about it. Having experienced a situation by seeing or hearing about it. That means we have not physically experienced, but we saw or we heard about it. One contemplates and speculates about that situation, and thus one surrenders to it, not considering his present body. Similarly, by mental adjustments, one dreams at night of living under different circumstances in different bodies and forgets his actual position. Under this same process, one gives up his present body and accepts another. Wow. See how nicely it is explained. So, we are thinking of certain things, hearing or seeing these things, and we are always contemplating and speculating about that situation, that thing, those things that we are, inputting into our brains. And as we surrender to it, what is the meaning of surrender to that situation? What does that mean? So, suppose I hear enough about the beauty of Switzerland, and then I see all the pictures in the Google, and like I watch some vlogs of people who have been there, and wow, this is so beautiful. I really want to go there. How to go there and how people have gone there. Okay, I've watched some of those videos or some articles, blogs, and everything. So I am contemplating and speculating about the situation. What if I am there? So what happens? This is called, it's an important word which I just learned today as well. Vicarious. Vicarious. We vicariously experience certain things. That means second-hand experience. Somebody else experienced and they're sharing it with us, and then we are imagining him or her being in that situation. And the vlogs actually do that. Like vlogs, when people do go some places and then they do videos and all that. So we experience that place through them. So this is a vicarious experience. So having experienced a situation by seeing or hearing about it, this is second-hand experience, right? So these vicarious experiences will make us think of the possibility of having first-hand experience, direct experience of that. And so we eventually think and think and think and like make plans, and then finally, this is called surrendering to it. If I want a pet dog, it's just an idea. But maybe my friend will tell that, hey, I have this dog now, I just got a dog, it's so nice. And I may go and visit that friend. Oh yeah, actually so nice. And then I also go and do some research and this and that and this and that. So now I will start thinking about which dog to get and all the different breeds and which one I like or something like that, and how to train dogs, and all these things. My whole, so much energy I have to put in getting attached to the dog, and I surrender to that situation where, okay, I'll get a dog, and okay, this is the dog I'm going to get. This is where I'm going to go to that shop, and I'm going to purchase the dog with some money, and then I will have this dog. So you see, that is called surrendering to the situation. Similarly, we create so many conceptions in our life, and we give into that. Yes, this is life. This is how life should be, and then we create so many impressions and ideas about life, and we get attached to certain things, many things in life. So in this way, we are even not even considering our present body. We do that. So similarly, by mental adjustments, one dreams at night of different living under different circumstances and different bodies, and forgets his actual position. So under the same process, one gives up his present body and accepts another. And if you see the purport here, very nicely explained. I'll just go to the purport and then I'll stop it there. So transmigration of the soul is very clearly explained in this verse. One sometimes forgets his present. Let me just see if okay, everything is visible, right? Okay. Transmigration of the soul is very clearly explained in this verse. One sometimes forgets his present body and thinks of his childhood body, a body of the past, and of how one was playing, jumping, talking, and so on. When the material body is no longer workable, it becomes dust. From dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. But this is from the Bible. But when the body again mixes with the material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the mind continues to work. This is the thing that we don't realize. The mind is a subtle substance in which the body is created. So the body is created in the subtle substance of the mind. So this is where we latch onto that new body in our mind and then give up this gross body. How powerful. As we actually experience in our dreams and also when we are awake in contemplation. One must understand that the process of mental speculation develops a new type of body that does not actually exist. It creates. So just imagine the power of the mind. It can create an entire body that we have now. We may think our father and mother were the cause of this body, or Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is of course the supplier of everything, but honestly, it was our, of course, resting on Krishna's mystic potency. We have created this body, this unique body that we have. We have created with our mental, just by imagining things in our previous life. We have created this body just out of thin air. How powerful is this mind? One must understand that the process of mental speculation develops a new type of body that does not actually exist. If one can understand the nature of the mind, manorathena, and its thinking, feeling, and willing, one can very easily understand how, from the mind, different types of bodies develop. So, if one of those many different types of bodies are developed from the mind, if we place so much attention on that body, how much more attention should be on the mind, which is infinite times more important than the body? And how much more importance should be given to the soul, which is infinite times more important than the mind? So, of course, we have a spiritual mind, intelligence, and true ego. So, if you think of Krishna, then the mind will become spiritualized. So, you have to think, hey, giving into these small temptations. Maya does not pull us away in one single short. She will incrementally and imperceptibly, imperviously, she grabs me and then takes me away. So it is not so alarming when she does that. And that's why we give in. And that is the most dangerous thing. When it is upfront, the danger is upfront, we immediately notice it. And when we notice, we may take some steps to counter it. But when it is not noticeable is when it is most dangerous. Because then we will not even take any measures to counter it. And we will agree to being put in danger. So that is how dangerous this is. So here, the Krishna consciousness movement therefore offers a process of transcendental activities wherein the mind is fully absorbed in affairs pertaining to Krishna. The presence of the soul is perceived by consciousness, and one must purify his consciousness from material to spiritual, or in other words, to Krishna consciousness. That which is spiritual is eternal, and that which is material is temporary. Without Krishna consciousness, one's consciousness is always absorbed in temporary things. For everyone, therefore, Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad-gītā 9:34, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhya jimam namaskuru. One should always be absorbed in thought of Krishna, one should become his devotee, one should always engage in his service and worship him as the supreme great, and one should always offer him obeisances. In the material world, one is always a servant of a greater person. And in the spiritual world, our constitutional position is to serve the supreme, the greatest paramaṁ. This is the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivar Swarupa Krishna Nityadas, CC Madhya 20.108. To act in Krishna consciousness is the perfection of life and the highest perfection of yoga. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā 6:47, Yoginam abhi sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. The condition of the mind, which flickers between sankalpa and vikalpa, accepting something and rejecting it, is very important in transferring the soul to another body at the time of death. Sometimes we want to do spiritual life, sometimes we don't want to do. Sometimes I want to do this, sometimes I want to do that, sometimes I don't want to do this, sometimes I don't want to do that. These are like reasonably, seemingly small things. Okay, today I feel like doing it, tomorrow don't feel like doing it. But these small flickerings of sankalpa and vikalpa, however small they may sound, they are very important in transferring the soul to another material body at the time of death. You see, the consequence is huge, massive consequence. Another body. And what is driving that? The small agreements and disagreements that we have in our mind, day to day acceptances and rejections that we do in our mind. However seemingly insignificant we may think they're actually framing our next body. यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेयः सदा तद्भावभावितः. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, one must train the mind in the system of bhakti yoga, as did Maharaj Ambarish, who kept himself always in Krishna consciousness. Savai manah Krishna padaravindayo. One must fix the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna 24 hours a day. If the mind is fixed upon Krishna's lotus feet, the activities of the other senses will be engaged in Krishna's service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. CC Madhya 1970. Rishikena, to serve Rishikesh, the master of senses, with purified senses is called bhakti. So that is bhakti. Those who constantly engage in devotional service are situated in a transcendental state above the material modes of nature, as Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicārena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samadhityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. One must learn the secret of success from the Vedic literatures, especially when the cream of Vedic knowledge is presented by the Bhagavad-gītā as it is. Because the mind is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, the word apasmritihi is significant. Forgetfulness of one's own identity is called apasmriti. This apasmritihi can be controlled by the Supreme Lord, for the Lord says, Mattaha smriti jnanam apohanam cha. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Instead of allowing one to forget one's real position, Krishna can revive one's original identity at the time of one's death, even though the mind may be flickering. Although the mind may work imperfectly at the time of death, Krishna gives the devotee shelter at his lotus feet. Therefore, when a devotee gives up his body, the mind does not take him to another material body. Tattvavit punarjanmana iti mameti. Rather, Krishna takes the devotee to that place where Krishna is engaged in his pastimes, mameti, as we've already discussed in previous verses. One's consciousness, therefore, must always be absorbed in Krishna, and then one's life will be successful. Otherwise, the mind will carry the soul to another material body. The soul will be placed in the semen of a father and discharged into the womb of a mother. The semen and ovum create a particular type of body according to the form of the father and mother, and when the body is mature, the soul emerges in that body and begins a new life. This is the process of transmigration of the soul from one body to another, tatha dehantara praptihi. Unfortunately, those who are less intelligent think that when the body disappears, everything is finished. The entire world is being misled by such fools and rascals. But as stated in the Bhagavad-gītā 2:20, nahanyate hanyamane sharire, the soul does not die when the body is destroyed. Rather, the soul takes on another body. So, I hope it is clear the importance of how our thinking should be, how we should be very watchful of our thinking and not let it go everywhere and anywhere, and always engage in Krishna's activities like Ambarish Maharaj with full understanding on why we are doing it. Not just being engaged in the service, but not actually understanding the importance of such service. So, any questions or comments on this topic? I will now go through the comment section. Lakshmi Gairi. Prabhuji, can a verse of Bhagavad Gita have more than one meaning? There are infinite meanings to each and every verse. But we cannot speculate about them. It will be revealed. More and more meanings of a verse will be revealed to us as we become more and more fixed up in our Krishna consciousness. Now, I'll take you on to one verse. Prati shabdhe prati vakya nana artha koya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Krishna tulya bhagavat vibhu sarvashray prati shloke prati akshare nana artha koya. Srimad Bhagavatam is as great as Krishna, the Supreme Lord and shelter of everything. In each and every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam and in each and every syllable, there are various meanings. The Atmarama verse was explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in 61 different ways to Sanatana Goswami. So, yes, each and every verse has many, many meanings, but we cannot speculate about these meanings. So, as it is, like Prabhupada has given the meaning, and as we, try to understand, in that explanation itself, there are many, many meanings. Depth. The same verse is applicable at unlimited depths. So, there are many examples to these things, these kind of verses, where, it can have, and depending on what state of mind we are in, the verse will instruct us in different way, just suitable for that situation. But the meaning of the word never changed. The meaning of the verse never changed, but it sometimes hits us differently when we're in a certain mind, when we're in a certain, mental condition. When we read, we find answers. In Prabhupada's books, every time we get answers to our deepest questions and confusions or, some clarity. We will get when we're reading Prabhupada's books. Why and how? Because the answers are actually there. But just that, because we're looking for them, now Krishna reveals something. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So in this way, yes, there are many meanings, but we cannot speculate on these meanings. These will be revealed to us by the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasya deva parabhaktir yatha deve tatha gurav tasyate kathitha hi arthaha prakashante mahatmana. So the kathitha hi artha means these meanings. We can understand if we have firm faith in the spiritual master, not in our own speculative capacity. Oh yeah, I will explain this verse in a very, very, unique, never before heard way. We don't want Bhagavad-gītā never before heard. We don't want sensational rubbish translation of Bhagavad-gītā. We want Bhagavad-gītā as it is. So that as it is itself has all the meaning. So we cannot speculate on this. But yes, there are many meanings to every verse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is saying, प्रति श्लोके प्रति अक्षरे नाना अर्थ को. Okay. Next. Rajeshwari Masi, Prabhuji, because of this mind, is it difficult to bring change in our swabhava? See, swabhava, our spiritual swabhava is one, to serve Krishna. Whereas you're talking about, I think, our material swabhava because of our present body, our present condition. But if you see, suppose I have a Brahmana body. Huh? I'm in a Brahmana, as a Brahmana now designated. So, next life I may become dog. Now, how did my swabhava change from Brahmana to a dog, like Bharat Maharaj? From a great king, a great tapasvi, great devotee to deer. How did that change? It changes in the mind first. So, how did that change? Because of the attachment, of association. This is why, what is that? Sangha sanjayate kamaha. From our association develops our desires. And these desires, this multitude of desires cause our swabhava. So if we associate with devotees, our desires, our thing can change. Just as if I associate with a deer, I can become a deer. So if I become associated with devotee, then I can become a devotee. So we can change. The reason why it may be very difficult for many people to change their swabhava and they remain in with their, materialistic this thing is because they don't seriously associate. Therefore, they remain where they are. If one seriously associates, one can actually change. How did Mrigari change from being an absolute ruthless hunter to a devotee who was not prepared to kill even an ant? How did he change? Because he took up the process very seriously. The reason why we don't see such drastic changes in people is because they don't take the process so seriously. So that is the determining factor. So how to take this Krishna consciousness seriously, how to associate with this process seriously, is we have to practice every day and in the company of devotees. And in this way we can, and hearing and chanting this and reading. Hearing means not only classes, reading Prabhupada's books directly. That is very important. Then only one can see the change. If one does not engage in Shravanam Kirtanam, the purification does not happen. But we cannot say that the purification Swabhava is it cannot be changed. That means we don't have faith in the holy name. The only reason why there's, even though people are chanting, they don't change much in their character is because of offenses. But if they chant nicely with with progressive reduction of offenses, then you will see the change in that person from what he was to what he is. And the length of time that takes for that change is an index of how serious that person is in taking up the process. So if he takes, say, to give up meat, if he takes like 5 years, it's very slow, extremely slow. He's not taking it too seriously. He doesn't understand that this is poison. If it is poison, why should I take it all? So I will immediately give it up. So how seriously am I taking it? How convinced I am? Our seriousness will depend on our conviction. If we are convinced, we'll take it seriously. So if I'm not convinced, then I will not take it seriously. I'm convinced about, I'm not taking it seriously means I'm serious about something else. And what is that something else? That is where my conviction is. Uh, it is not that I'm serious not of this and not of that and not of anything. If I'm not serious about anything, I'm serious about my laziness. I want to be lazy. I want to just do nothing. I'm serious about that. And that's why I don't do anything. So wherever my seriousness is, wherever my conviction is, that this is my definition of happiness and I want to be like this. For some people, that is, becoming an engineer, becoming a doctor, becoming a social media influencer nowadays, and becoming this and that, or a businessman or whatever. For some people, it's just my definition of happiness is I want to be just laze around, do nothing, and just people feed me, and I'll just like watch my phone. If this is my conviction that this is what is making me happen, I'll stay there. So conviction is important, and that is why this Shruti, Shranvata, Shravanam is very important. Krishna Shravanam. Then we can change. Of course, we can change. Prabhupada said, one moment is enough to become Krishna conscious. But the thing is that we're not taking it seriously. We're not convinced enough. Manodushtam Asat Patham. 328.7. Let's go to 328.7. एतैरन्यैश्च पतिभिर्मनोदुष्टमसत्पथं बुद्ध्या युञ्जीत शनकैर्जितप्राणो ह्यतन्द्रितः. By these processes or any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very nice. What is the process? Fixing the vital air in the mind in one of the six circles of this is Ashtanga Yoga, Sat, Sat, Shat Chakra Yoga. So, ours is Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. The whole point is to fix our mind. So there are different processes, Jnana, Karma, Bhakti, but the ultimate point is to fix one's mind on Krishna. Manah dushtam satpatham. True. Okay, so next. Radhika Sati Mataji. That's so true. Best to follow the good example. Even materially, top universities have dropouts, but the good students do well and graduate. Same idea in spiritual life. Yes. And Karishya Vachanam Tava. Yeah. This Karishya Vachanam Tava is initiation. Is when the disciple agrees to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. That is real initiation. The occupational activities man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So the essence is to all these things should lead to that. This is another verse, 1063:41. One who has attained the human form of life as a gift from God, yet who fails to control his senses and honor your feet, is sure to be pitied, for he is only cheating himself. Very nice verse actually. Let's go to the Sanskrit, 1063:41. देवदत्तं इमं लब्ध्वा नृलोकं मजितेन्द्रियः यो नाद्रियेत त्वत्पादौ सशोच्यो ह्यात्मवञ्चकः. Atmavanchakah. Cheating himself. Lord Shiva is saying this. Condemns those who refuse to engage in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. See, Lord Shiva himself is saying. Very nice verse. Thank you for quoting such examples to help us better and understand better how we need to improve ourselves in following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated as a result of continually thinking of sense objects. One's real consciousness, come on, real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. Yeah, infinitesimal. No, 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 no. Yeah, it's not infinitesimal. The word is uh, I don't know. Impalpable. No. Uh, impervious. Impervious. No, not even impervious. Actually, it is impervious is a totally different word. Um, the gurus also use this word very much. The ISKCON gurus. I can't. Just out of reach. No mind. I don't want to waste your time. Just wondered before, during Aarti, we devotees do the spinning thing, holding hands and spinning, and other such games, especially among Matajis. But in that process, mostly it's hard to chant. So why do we do these external things if they can't help us remember the Lord? So actually, during the kirtan, one has to chant with full understanding, actually, and then it is a festival. So yeah, dancing is there, but one should not. Many times I've seen. I mean, devotees they forget chanting while dancing. They're dancing and dancing. Hello, where is the chanting going on? Chanting is completely stopped. So, I mean, these dancing is part of the this thing, but it is out of actually happiness that we are with Krishna's name. But if we don't understand that, you know, it is not a problem with the dancing, but it is not being aware that actually the kirtan is a real important thing, and the dancing comes with the kirtan. So anyway, but the holy name is going on, so some benefit is there, but actually wholehearted participation should be there in the kirtan. That should be the you know it is not a means to achieve the end of perfecting kirtan, but it is out of the happiness that we are with Krishna, with this holy name. And that itself is a celebration. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, which is chanting and dancing. So that is the whole point. That it has to be done out of the happiness that this is the most festive thing, not like have a festival without holy name. That is not the process. But yeah, many devotees forget, you know, just dance and then forget about singing. So it's a problem. One second, where am I? Okay. Anandani Mataji. Actually, every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna, but due to forgetfulness, a living entity engages himself as an eternal servant of Maya. As long as one is engaged in Maya's service, as soon as one is engaged in Maya's service, they really need to remember chanting. I don't know. I don't know. It is cut off. There is no continuation of this. Daily need to remember chanting is all source of motivation to engage mind in service. Yeah. What is the difference between Shruti and Smriti? I'm sorry, but this is not the subject of this class, so I can't be going into that. But briefly, Shruti is the Vedanta Sutra, the four Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Smriti is the Puranas, Itihasas, and other Dharma Shastras, Artha Shastras, all the Smriti. So, and other, writings by other sages, these are all Smriti. That is the shortest answer I can give, but because it's not connected with the topic of the class, so I wouldn't elaborate more on it at this point. Mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Personality of God. The mind at that time does not act separately, nor does it act without inspiration to fulfill the desire of the Lord. 328:35 purport. Okay, Divya Krishna Mataji. Prabhuji, while preaching, sometimes we point out mistakes of ISKCON devotees for their mistakes. So definitely they would try to point out against us. Here my doubt is, in ISKM2 we have all varieties of devotees starting from a very beginner to very well advanced. As you said, we shouldn't find faults in others and follow advanced than the lowest devotee. But for the sake of alertness, that due to some lowest devotee of our or our own self have committed mistakes, our organization may be pointed out by other group devotees. So for this purpose, should we not find fault and alert the devotees who are practicing without complete commitment? Let me just read that again. While preaching, sometimes come to the point of what is okay. We have many varieties of devotees. We should not find fault in others. But for the sake of alertness, that due to some lowest devotee or our own self, if committed mistakes, our organization may be pointed out by other group devotees. So for this purpose, should we not find fault and alert the devotees who are practicing without complete commitment? So, yes, there may be many people who are not following in our organization also, and they are at different levels. But for example, um, Prabhupada spoke about, you know, for example, illicit sex being a sinful activity. But many devotees also did illicit sex, who are not mature devotees. They did, and seemingly some of the devotees who took up important positions in the society also fell for those things. So now that is a problem. Now, if many people they may not follow something. Yes, we should, as even if I'm just a sweeper in the temple, I should follow everything nicely because I have to represent Krishna and Prabhupada and the devotees and the sampradaya very nicely. Therefore, I should present myself correctly as much as possible. I may make mistakes, and if somebody is not as careful, if the follower is not following properly, it reflects on the leader. But at least the leader should be correctly following. For example, even those things happened in ISKCON, even during Prabhupada's time, Prabhupada never exhibited such behavior or condoned such behavior of his deviant disciples. He always instructed them to correct their mistakes. So That's what a leader should do. But if he condones such mistakes and if he commits himself such mistakes, that is when it should be pointed out. Yeah, people come with all kinds of mistakes, all kinds of levels. Uh, but the leader, at least, should be of very high grade principles and character. So it is important that, of course, to a one who is just like, just joining our movement, we don't talk about these con gurus and all these things. This is something that needs to be done later on. But if it's a particular topic, suppose they are coming from that ISKCON side, then we have to mention, okay, you know what, Prabhupada's orders are these, but unfortunately in ISKCON we don't find this happening. So that is a huge deviation. So we have to point that out. But that is not our first point of preaching. Our preaching is of Krishna consciousness and our philosophy and everything. Only when it comes to, interacting with ISKCON or something like that, then yeah, the other things come in. Okay? So we have to do it tactfully. I mean, we have to do it depending on where that candidate is. We have to talk accordingly. What needs to be spoken, what need not to be spoken. We need to be, more clear about that. What else? Yeah, after leaving the material body, perfect devotee takes birth from the womb of a gopi on a planet where Krishna's pastimes are going on. So many translations. Dimitri Prabhu is saying, so that's why there are so many translations of Bhagavad-gītā, because each and every translator has his unique state of mind. Yeah. Out of curiosity, I looked at other translations and I understood nothing. Complete hodgepodge. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada for such an understandable edition. Yeah, I mean, there was one devotee here also. She had a copy of Bhagavad-gītā, very nice looking, very red color, and good binding and everything, like top notch. You open the book, you start reading the sentences, they don't make any sense. Any sense. Like just gibberish. So it's that's what happens when one is not a devotee. Oh. Those lazy persons, people want to live like pythons. Yeah. 24:31 almost makes it look like every syllable or verse is a fractal infinite depth, but with the same takeaway of devotional service or bhakti, albeit at different levels of understanding. 24:318. Madhyam 24. Yes, actually, yeah, almost makes it look like every syllable or verse is a fractal infinite depth, but the same takeaway of devotional service or bhakti, albeit at different. Yeah, that is true, and this I'll show you something. Okay. Oh, here he has not given much. Okay, wait. Adi 9, 10. You see, this is Adi Lila chapter 9, text 10. I'm just giving you an example. जय श्री माधवपुरी कृष्ण प्रेमपुर भक्ति कल्प तरुर तेहो प्रथम अंकुर All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service, and to Kṛṣṇa. He is the desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. What does this mean? Because in our Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya, it's Madhavendra Puri who initiated the Radha Krishna worship formally in our Sampradaya. Therefore, it is said it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. And then his disciple Ishwar Puri, and then his disciple Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, here, let's read the purport. Sri Madhavendra Puri, also known as Sri Madhav Puri. Oh, look at this. I'm looking at the iPad and I'm talking. What is this? Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just talking on the iPad. Sorry. So all glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service, and to Kṛṣṇa is the desire of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. Purport. Sri Madhavendra Puri, also known as Sri Madhav Puri, belonged to the disciplic succession from Madhvacharya and a greatly celebrated sannyasi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the second disciplic descendant from Sri Madhavendra Puri. The process of worship in the disciplic succession of Madhvacharya was full of ritualistic ceremonies with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. Actually, I'm reading now this book called Brahmana and Vaishnava by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There he mentions that there's Pancharatrika devotees and Bhagavad devotees. And even in Sri Sampradaya and everything, Pancharatrika devotees, Pancharatrika devotion is more prominent than Bhagavad devotion. Anyway, that's a whole subject on its own, very intricate. But yeah, so Madhvacharya's disciplic succession was full of ritualistic ceremonies with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. Sri Madhavendra Puri was the first person in that disciplic succession to exhibit the symptoms of love of Godhead, and the first to write a poem beginning with the words Ai Dina Dayardra Natha, O Supremely Merciful Personality of Godhead. In that poem is the seed of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cultivation of love of Godhead. Now, if you see actually this verse, this song starting from Ai Dina Dayardra Natha, I actually do not know the entire song of this, but this particular verse is quoted. It's quoted in Antya 8.34. आई दीन दयार्द नाथ है मथुरा नाथ कदावलोक्य से हृदयं त्वदलोक कातरं दयित भ्राम्यति किं करोम्यहम्. Now, O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has now become unsteady. O most beloved, what shall I do now? So, why did Prabhupada say that in this song was the seed of devotional service first manifested and everything? Of course, purport there is this. For an explanation, see Madhya Lila 4.197. Go there. Maybe let's go there first. Let's see what's written there. आरेक गोपी प्रेमेर स्वाभाविक चिह्न जे प्रकारे होय प्रेम कामगंधहीन. There is another natural symptom of the gopis' love that shows it to be without a trace of lust. This is what? Am I even Madhya Lila? I'm not talking about Radha Lila. Okay. Ai Dina Dayardra Natha hai Mathura Natha Kadavalokya se. To the same verse. The uncontaminated devotees who strictly depend on the Vedanta philosophy are divided into four sampradayas or transcendental parties. Out of the four sampradayas, the Sri Madhvacharya Sampradaya was accepted by Madhavendra Puri. Thus, he took sannyas according to parampaṁ, the disciplic succession. Beginning from Madhvacharya down to the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri, the Acharya named Lakshmipati, there was no realization of devotional service in conjugal love. Sri Madhavendra Puri introduced the conception of conjugal love for the first time in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, and this conclusion of the Madhvacharya Sampradaya was revealed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he toured South India and met the Tattvavadis, who were actually Madhva followers, who supposedly belonged to the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. When Sri Krishna left Vrindavan and accepted the kingdom of Mathura, Srimati Radharani, out of ecstatic feelings of separation, expressed how Krishna can be loved in separation. Thus, devotional service in separation is central to this verse. Worship in separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vipralambha Seva, that finds its origin in this particular verse, service in separation. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. Thus, he addresses the Lord as Dina Dayardranatha, as did Madhavendra Puri. And I guess you know that verse, right? Okay, we'll just come back to this verse. Um, I'm just making huge guesses here. What is that? Radharani says that Sambhoga and Vipralambha. What is that? Forgot the Sanskrit. How come? Wait a second. I'll search on my iPad and I'll try to take it out on the screen. No. Sangama Viraha Vikalpe. Yes. This was Tatvavit 240. Oh, SP 240. Okay. Sangama Viraha Vikalpe Varamiha Viraho Na Sangamantasya Ekasya Eva Sange Tribhuvanamapi Tanmayam Virahe. Radharani. Separation from Krishna is better than meeting him. When I meet him, there is only one Krishna, but when I'm separated from him, the three worlds become filled with Krishnas. So this is a much more ecstatic position than even meeting, and that was introduced by Madhavendra Puri by that verse. Okay, let's go back. That Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me, that is again based on, again, the seed is here in the Madhavendra Puri, this particular verse. Thus he addresses the Lord as Dina Dayardranath, as Madhavendra Puri. Such an ecstatic feeling is the highest form of devotional service. Because Krishna had gone to Mathura, Srimati Radharani was very much affected, and she expressed herself thus: My dear Lord, because of your separation, my mind has become overly agitated. Now tell me, what can I do? I am very poor and you are very merciful, so kindly have compassion upon me and let me know when I shall see you. Okay, so as a devotee, when we chant this verse, Mathura Nath, we are just referring to Krishna. But the reason why he is called Mathura Nath is because Srimati Radharani is saying, until now, you were the Nath of Vrindavan, Vrindavan Nath. Now you became Mathura Nath. Now they are having your company. You are now left this Vrindavan. So when she is mentioning Mathura, she is mentioning with this understanding of Krishna has left Vrindavan. Now you are Mathura Nath. No more resident of Vrindavan anymore. So that intensifies her feeling. So, but when we take out that understanding, is Mathura Nath, another name of Krishna. But why particularly that name? There is, nuance to that. And why Radharani says like that? Now you are somebody else's, and now you are no more. You are a resident of Mathura now. So, the depth of meaning I'm talking about. We can always pray to the Lord, chanting these words. Please have mercy on me. How can I think of you, and like this. But the conjugal mood with which Radharani did that, we cannot replicate at this point. But see her the way she and the Mathuranath becomes so meaningful. Actually, it's a distressing word for her. Whereas we say Mathuranath, oh Mathuranath, and all like Krishna. For her, it's very distressing, transcendently distressing. But that increases the ecstatic feelings. So, depth. So the same verse, but the understanding is different. Um, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always expressing the ecstatic emotions of Srimati Radharani that she exhibited when she saw Uddhava at Vrindavan. Similar feelings experienced by Madhavendra Puri are expressed in this verse. Therefore, Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya say that the ecstatic feelings experienced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his appearance came from Sri Madhavendra Puri through Ishwar Puri. All the devotees in the line of Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya accept these principles of devotional service. Why this word Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya is used? Why not Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya? Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, right? Why Gaudiya is used first? So here it is used because it is in the Madhva Sampradaya, but the Gaudiya branch, the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya. So to simplify that. So I mean, just an example of same verse, different meaning. So and then if you analyze that Atmarama verse, if you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation of how he gives different meanings for each and every word, and then with one meaning of one word and keeping the other words constant meaning, he explains in one way. Then he changes that word and keep the rest of them constant and explain another way, like that. So if one word has like 5 meanings or 6 meanings, then with each meaning he will explain the whole thing, and then he will keep this one constant and then this as different, and then the second word different meaning, and in this way he explains everything in so detailed manner. So like this, everything has many, many meanings. Mangalarti and chanting is regular, most majority problems will be reduced. Maya will become weak to disturb. That is true. That is true. Mangalarti, chanting, hearing, reading, prasadam, everything is important. How to be a better devotee? Well, chant Hare Krishna and follow all these rules and regulations. At least first of all, Shravanam Kirtanam, reading Prabhupada's books and chanting Hare Krishna. Vivek. How can I balance studying and spiritual? I will give more time to studying, because of that the mind will not thinking of God. Well, you start chanting Hare Krishna and read Prabhupada's books. It's not about balancing, it's about transitioning. So you have to handle the transition. So now we are in the materialistic world and we have to become devotee. It's two extremes. So now there is a transition phase, which is our life now. So the transition is what we have to handle. It's not to balance exactly. The aim is not to balance. The aim is to completely come to spiritual life. While we're navigating the transition, how to conduct ourselves. So that is the issue. So since you're doing studying and all that, that whole path of materialistic study and job and all these things, it's a huge distraction from our real work, which is devotional service. But because we're not convinced enough to take up this thing wholeheartedly yet, and we may not be trained enough how to do it. So therefore, first we have to work on our conviction. So to increase our conviction, so for your stage, I suggest you just spend more time reading Prabhupada's books. Purposefully read his books and try to adopt, try to understand what he's saying. As you read his books, you will automatically become a devotee. And so now your material life is here and spiritual life here at bottom. Now it will slowly increase and increase and increase and increase and increase. Proportionately, as our material life, spiritual life increases, our material life decreases, and then material life becomes nil. So that transition you have to handle. So Krishna will give all intelligence. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. How to come to me 100%? I will give intelligence to my devotee. If he puts effort into Shravanam Kirtanam. So Parasparanukathanam. So that is explained in the 10th chapter, 9th verse and 10th verse. As we learn more about Krishna and the association of devotees, then Krishna will make all these arrangements. give us the intelligence, give us the impetus and everything. Right? All right, I think I'll stop here. Thank you all very much. Bhagavad-gītā ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.